Before the world was watching, there were stories in these mountains, thousands of years in the making, held in memory, carried beyond borders. They endured the unimaginable, but the voice did not fade. The stories refused to disappear. They carry not only the memory of a people, but the promise of what comes next. This is that moment. We tell them on our own terms. Kurdistan Film Fund, Global Launch, Cannes.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm very pleased to have you here with us today. Today marks a very important moment for the creative sector in Kurdistan. Despite all challenges, we are here. And this is actually because of leadership of someone who, despite all, recognized that culture, art, storytelling, and creative industries are not secondary, but are fundamental to the future. So please welcome His Excellency, the Deputy Prime Minister of the Kurdistan Regional Government, Qubad Talabani.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be back here in Cannes, and I am very delighted that the audience this year is a lot bigger than the audience last year. So welcome, and I hope you find this event worthwhile. I'm here today because we have decided that Kurdistan's stories will no longer be told by others on our behalf. We will tell them ourselves, on our terms, with the depth and accuracy that only we can provide. Because for decades, the narrative around Kurdistan has been fragmented, shaped by external observers, filtered through conflict, constrained by headlines, and sometimes by stereotypes. The world has not seen who we actually are. A region with a living culture, working institutions, young people with ambition, and a creative sector ready to compete globally. Today, with the establishment of the Kurdistan Film Fund, we are changing that. This is not a gesture, it is a system. The fund is infrastructure. It means capital for production, technical skills for our filmmakers, a pathway from concept to screen to international distribution, jobs, sustained employment in an industry that attracts talent and keeps it. For our young people, this opens up a career that did not exist before, gives them an industry, a future. For our filmmakers, it means you can work at the highest levels without having to leave Kurdistan and worry about getting visas. You can tell your stories with professional resources, international partnerships, and a global audience. To our filmmakers and creators, your work is not charity. It is not symbolic. It is the foundation of an industry. And we have with us the brightest and the best of our industry here in the audience and here in Cannes. Our delegation this year is double what it was last year. And I've brought them to Cannes to show the world three things. First, our history with honesty and depth. Second, who we are today, our cities, our energy, our institutions, our ambition. Third, who we are becoming, the next generation building this region for ourselves. To international producers, investors and storytellers, this is a genuine partnership. We are open. We want your expertise, your collaboration, and yes, your capital. And we have something to offer: emerging talent, compelling stories, a market ready to grow, beautiful scenery, and a people willing to support. This is a region with genuine momentum. I've seen firsthand what is happening across our part of the world, in Jordan, in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in the UAE. The film and creative industries are growing with real momentum. There is capital, there is talent, there is ambition. But these industries exist largely in isolation. Separate markets, separate conversations, and separate ambitions. We have an opportunity and a responsibility to be something different. For centuries, Kurdistan has been a bridge between cultures, between civilizations, between worlds. That is our geography, that is our history, and that is what we have done for millennia. And we're doing that again, but now through film and through storytelling. We want to connect the creative talent of this region with the capital and infrastructure of our neighbors. We want to show the world that despite political differences, despite regional tensions, the odd war, that cinema can cross those boundaries, that storytelling can unite where politics divides. This fund is not just an opportunity for Kurdistan. It's a signal to the region that we see the momentum and that we want to be part of it, that we are willing to invest in the relationships, the collaborations, the partnerships that make this region stronger. We want to be a bridge, not a battlefield. We want to build, not destroy. We want to create an industry and opportunity where there is currently division. This fund is not a one-year initiative. We are committing to this for the long term, year after year, building the sector step by step, story by story. I expect to return to Cannes. Actually, no, I promise I will return to Cannes, not just to give speeches, but to attend the premiere of a Kurdish film made with international partners, supported by this fund and competing at the highest level. That will be the measure of our success. This will be the result of the hard work that a lot of people have put in. And to that end, I want to recognize somebody essential to this moment. This fund exists because of the vision and the determination of the Kurdistan Film Commission, and especially because of Ms. Bavi Yassin. She's been a trailblazer. She has lit up our industry with her clarity, her ambition, and her unwavering commitment to excellence. It is her work, her leadership, and her stubborn resolve not to let something go that has brought us all here together in Cannes today. Thank you, Bavi, for seeing what we could become and for refusing to accept anything less. What is happening in Kurdistan right now matters. We are building institutions. We are creating systems. We are investing in our people. The film and creative sectors are part of this. They are essential parts because how a nation tells its story determines how it is seen, how it is understood, how it attracts investment, talent, and partnership. We are ready to be seen, to be understood, to be part of the global conversation. Not as subjects, certainly not as victims of history, but as participants, not just in Cannes, but across our region and the world. With confidence, with competence, and with long-term commitment. It is my honor to officially launch the Kurdistan Film Fund. Welcome once again, and thank you for participating.
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Mike Rosser. I'm the Asia and Middle East editor for Screen International. And thank you, Your Excellency, for those incredibly inspiring words and for setting the tone at what is clearly a very significant moment. I think what we're seeing today is not simply the launch of a fund, but the emergence of a structured approach to filmmaking in Kurdistan. To explore what this means in practice, both on a local and on an international level, I'm very pleased to welcome our panel. First, as we heard, we've got Bavi Yassin, the founder and chairperson of the Kurdistan Film Commission, the Kurdistan Film Commission was actually launched right here last year. So it's in only 1 year that this fund has been established, which is quite an amazing achievement. Then we have David Devoli, the founder and CEO of Lucaville Global. David is highly regarded for bridging Hollywood with international markets. He has over 3 decades of experience, even though you wouldn't know it to look at him, and is formerly of Anonymous Content and Bron Studios with a list of very impressive credits. And finally, we have Tamara Mariam DeWitt in the middle, the producer and strategist at Qubad Media. Tamara is an Ethiopian-Canadian producer who recently wrapped a 1970s set thriller, which we're very excited about, and is working on an upcoming drama called The Last Tears of the Deceased. So yes, very, very active. So we're just going to talk for maybe 20, 30 minutes. We're not going to do Q&A because we'll all kind of network later, so we'll be able to approach the panelists in a bit. But I just out of curiosity, I'm interested in the makeup of of who's here today. It's a fantastic turnout. Do we have like any producers in the audience? There's a producer right there. Producers, interesting. And there. And this is the first time, I think, that I've moderated a panel at which there's been the attendance of a dog. Not only a dog, but a dog with a Cannes badge, no less. So that's incredibly impressive. And yeah, we'll look forward to finding out what everyone else does as well. But to sort of set the scene, set the stage, Bavi, can you talk about, I suppose, why now? You know, what gap is the Kurdistan Film Fund designed to address? And why is this moment important, especially in light of what's happening in the region? But, you know, why now launch this fund?
Exactly because of what you just said. We are always, when we are mentioning the region, we are connecting the region with very disastrous news. And we always keep on forgetting that this region is occupied by rich history, culture, and a lot of talent. And when it comes to the Kurdish talent, throughout history, as His Excellency stated, others have been telling our stories. Yes, there have been Kurdish films, but it was never from our support. We did not have that backing. So when I was talking to other filmmakers, their biggest problem was how to reach support. They did not have, for all the reasons His Excellency mentioned, they couldn't reach outside the borders of Kurdistan to apply for the funds abroad because they needed a producer to co-produce with them. So it was pure an industry business problem. So when we tried to design this fund, it was like, okay, what should we do to support our filmmakers, to tell our stories from our own perspective, not from others, to put ourselves on the map through art and culture and the creative industries, and to make sure that finally the producers from outside the borders of Kurdistan consider working with the Kurdish talents inside Kurdistan. And the only reason we can do that, and the only way, is through a fund. And now we are opening our doors and we are saying we have so many talented filmmakers. We have so many untold stories. And this is a gateway that we are opening for the international institution and also the regional one, which we are very, very keen to work with our Kurdish talents. And one of the biggest plus points of our fund is also that any projects that applies for our funds must work with a Kurdish talent, must have a Kurdish storyline, etc., etc. So it is this moment in history that we need to put ourselves out there and our stories out there.
Terrific. And so who is this fund? Can you tell us a little bit about the fund, basically? You know, who is it for? What does it involve? Yeah.
Okay. The fund is to support Kurdish filmmakers and Kurdish narrative. Why did we say Kurdish narrative and not just Kurdish filmmakers? Because, again, I know producers who have stories about us, or we see our name mentioned in other stories and in other films made by others. But we don't see Kurdish actors in these films. We don't see any Kurdish talent being hired, which we have so many of who are here in the audience. You can talk to them later. And when we say Kurdish narrative, it is the point that makes this fund interesting to build an industry. You see, for example, in Kurdistan, and I think everyone in the industry knows how transparent I am. Sometimes it puts me in a lot of troubles, but here it goes. I don't have post-production facilities in Kurdistan, but here again in the audience, I know brilliant post-production facilities in Europe or around the region. When a Kurdish filmmakers, I know they are looking at me right now, they are making their beautiful, brilliant films, but they don't know where to do the post-productions. Right now, this fund will open that door for producers to apply for our fund as long as the film is going to be edited even abroad, but the film is Kurdish. So the fund works on a very fundamental line, is to make sure the quality of the Kurdish productions becomes international, global. That's first. Secondly, for Kurdish filmmakers to work outside of Kurdistan. And third is to make the films globally seen. Because one very important point I would also like to mention is we just not gonna give money away. We're not doing that. Our fund is actually like in a loop. So we will train the local talents that we fund through very big training programs. For example, we work with IAVA, Entrepreneurship of Europe, Producers Lab, which was the first Producers Lab in Kurdistan. The talented filmmakers, surprise, surprise, who are here now, those are the first people who are eligible for the fund. So congratulations, guys. And then we have other labs coming. Why do we do that? Because, again, we will follow up the quality of these films. It's not about quantity, it's about the quality. As His Excellency mentioned, we're not gonna say, oh, this year we made 1 million films. Even if we make 5 great, brilliant films that you guys want to watch and that you guys will see travel around the world and be at festivals, I think we reached the goal that we wanted to reach.
Yeah, that's a great ambition. And so just then, before we move on to our other panelists, can we talk numbers a little bit? Can you talk about perhaps how many films you would like to perhaps support in the first year, or any insight on that?
Well, I have to first, because I just got a sign that I didn't see it coming, but our fund is got just much bigger than I realized. We have $2 million fund, which is for the Kurdistan region of Iraq. Deserve a very big applause, I think. And I didn't know that, but I got the sign that it's 2 million. And to go to practical, I hope I don't bore people with it. It is from short films, because that's where you will recognize the talent. And I know I taught at the university, who the head of the cinema department at the university is with us today, and I know I drove him mad, I'm so sorry, but I know that there were so many talented students who didn't know how to make their first short film, and that's so important. So a very big section of the fund goes to short films, and then all stages of feature film, development, production, post-production, and distribution. We will also have a big section for co-productions, and we welcome all co-productions treaties with different countries within the region and outside the borders of the region. And also, we want to launch a fund section to test the waters in the Kurdistan region, which is TV series. But again, toward mini TV series that is on that quality that I can go and not beg, but try to sell it to the broadcasters and the platforms on that quality. So this year, please bear with us, because we are testing things. We have designed a very beautiful fund, but at the same time, we are testing what the filmmakers need, who will approach us, because like you can't put everything on paper, but then who will apply? How will they apply? What do they exactly need? And that's something we want to see in our first round of the fund. And the fund is also annual, so from June, you can start applying. It is until next year, June. But I hope next year we will be here with at least rough cuts of the films that we funded and try to find distributors for them.
How exciting! Thank you very much for explaining that. So, David, we've heard quite a bit there. I wonder, as somebody who has like an incredible amount of experience in the international market, you see a lot of funds and initiatives. What makes you believe this one is perhaps worth engaging with, and what do you look for when it comes to a region and an offering?
What a question. Well, first, thank you, Bobby and His Excellency, for having me on the panel and for such an exciting initiative. It's really impressive. I think just to stay broad on that question, because it's so new and I'm not familiar with all of the aspects of it, but the way you guys are presenting it and the way that the infrastructure and foundation for what you're building, I think that's what's needed. That's what's most impressive, is to build it organically from the ground up and be focusing on stories from Kurdistan and developing the community there is what, to me, is the most interesting aspect of it. I think oftentimes funds will be created or initiatives around the world, and it's a lot of times it's a what can you do for me, and to take and to structure it in a way where like what can we do for you to help build and support your community. That to me is the most interesting and valuable fundamental aspect of what you're building, and I love that because I think world cinema is probably one of the most important things today, especially with all of the conflict in the world. I think world cinema is how we can address it, and I've spent a little bit of time in the region over the last couple of years, and I'm like mesmerized by the filmmakers and stories and excitement and freshness, probably more than any place in the world. in terms of voices and originality, and to have another player in the market for filmmakers to fund their films. I mean, like, this should be celebrated, because it's so hard to make things. To have somebody saying, listen, we're going to do this, and we're going to tell our stories, and we're going to bring money to the table, and we want to develop partnerships. I mean, this is just a beautiful thing, and I think the community should welcome it in a big way.
Yeah, because when you've got a project that you are looking to perhaps film outside of the US, I know you shot around Europe, Czech Republic, Australia, etc. What are some of the things that you're looking for that are important to you?
Well, quality of crew obviously is fundamental to anywhere you shoot. If you can utilize the crew in the territory, then your costs are obviously more manageable. The quality of the fund itself, in terms of being able to fund on time and close on time, and be able to close with like an international aspect, arrangement to it, scheme. I've seen some funds where the speed and sort of functionality of it is a bit off, and that sometimes prevents you from shooting in a place like that. And I'm sure you guys have thought all this through, but I think those are the quality of the crew and the ease and eventually bankability of well, I don't exactly know how it works, but if it's straight, but assuming some of it is credit or rebate or that sort of a scheme, if there's a way to cash flow these sorts of things, these are things as your business matures. Like, I think that's what will really attract international partners in there in a big way. Those two components.
Fantastic. And you spoke about crew there and the importance of developing that local crew. Tamara, maybe this is where I can bring you in, because you've experience in major markets like Canada and smaller ones like Ethiopia. I wonder what you think it kind of takes to build a real film ecosystem. Ooh, that's the sound of the wind right there. Doing some Foley work right now. To get back to and perhaps kind of talk about the link between training and funding. The importance of having a local crew.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the work I do is with IAVE, which Bavi mentioned. There's already been some work done there. And IAVE focuses on training producers. And for me, Kurdistan really now has the two main ingredients, because I believe if you invest in producers, those are the people who are going to carry and sort of be the mothers to, shall we say, to the content. And then the funding is the tools that enable them to have more ownership and control. And when you talk about the idea of narratives, supporting narratives from the country, it's all part of the same ecosystem, because I see so often projects coming here to the Marché from the Global South, from countries and regions that don't have funds, which I've experienced when I'm producing things from Ethiopia. We have no money in, so we're showing up here sort of with our begging bowl, and then we end up with hopefully a benevolent European who, because of how co-production works, will own and control that film or that TV series. So I think this immediately changes those conversations when you're able to show up to a meeting here and say, I already have this much in from my country. It's like the check mark. That if my country supports me, then your country also should. So I think that's like a huge, huge thing to celebrate today, and a huge accomplishment, even in the fact that it happened this quickly. And to me, the other side of that is, yes, you want really strong writers, directors, and below-the-line crew, but the producer is the person who's going to negotiate the contracts, the other financing, dealing with the other producers, dealing with sales and distribution. So you also want to make sure, I think there's sort of parallel in investment into those people, especially because, there's a lot of shady things. I've done work through IAVE, which with another region, which I won't mention, which initially launched their fund, and it was open to anyone in the world. So immediately what happened is the producers from that territory were disadvantaged. And then they realized, oh, okay, other people are coming in and taking our money, and maybe they're making films with our directors and our actors, but there's something off with the storytelling and with the narrative. So I think it's this dual focus of invest in the content and invest in the producers to shepherd forward those projects and own and control them.
Terrific. So do you think that's how, an emerging country in terms of the film industry can mark its presence in what's like a very fast-paced, expensive industry? I'm sort of wondering, how can an emerging region make its presence felt?
I mean, I think those are key ingredients, but it's also, to David's point, the talent. I mean, we can throw lots of money at something, but if we don't have a really strong script, if we don't have really strong actors, etc., and we're also, to Babi's point, aware of these are the things where maybe we're not that good, so we're going to find strong partners globally and make sure that what is coming out, especially the first few things, are like really strong and represent the future of what's possible.
That's interesting. So you're saying that the first projects to perhaps come out of the fund, if they have a very strong connection with Kurdistan, then it really sets out the stall of what this could be. Interesting. Okay. Because Bavia, coming back to you, I wonder sort of what the ambition is for the fund beyond year one and year two. We heard that this is a fund that is not a one-off. This is for many years to come. What are your ambitions for it?
Very simple, is to build a new industry in Kurdistan. We all know how powerful and how important the audiovisual industry, the creative industry is. And sometimes, often we think, those, I know I studied films, and I know the first time I wanted to study film, I think even my parents were like, oh yeah, the starving filmmaker. So, because that's a concept, like I studied in Belgium and it was something, we know that term, the starving filmmaker. But no, this industry is a very economically important industry to build in a country. There are countries, you have tourism, you have oil, but you can attract tourism and you can attract businesses to a country through the film sector. So that is the very economic industry part. Creating jobs, as His Excellency mentions, is very, very important. We don't want starving filmmakers. We want a filmmaker who peacefully can make his films, who can tell our stories, and who can walk on that red carpet representing one story that we wanted for the world to see. That is the way we put our identity out there. I think I don't have to explain that we Kurds, we always have to explain where we are, who we are, where are we situated. I mean, I'm still at my booth putting a map out there and trying to explain to everyone where we are. But when these filmmakers are gonna make films and when they're gonna sit down with partners all around the world, and as Tamara mentioned, a very important point, they have a bag, a strong bag. It's their film commission, it's their film fund, it's their leaderships that support them, and that will almost, in a very diplomatic, charismatic, beautiful way, force the other party to listen and to come and to invest in their projects. So that is the long-term goal we have.
Fantastic.
I think that's also the DNA of the most successful schemes around the world. Canada, Australia, in places in Europe where they invest in, and in the U.S. we don't do it as much, where development money is the hardest to find out to get a project started. But the cultures that really pay attention to that and say, like, no, we'll pay for the script, or we'll pay for the short and develop that. I mean, that really does give you an incredible leg up. And I love the way that you're thinking long term and not one off. Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about, like, in the emerging regions that you work in, like the level of training that you see and sort of how important you feel that is beyond the producers?
Sure. I mean, I think that typically training, for some reason, because it seems to be the sexy part, is focused on writers and directors. And then you have suddenly these people with projects that are developed and they're ready to work, but there's no one to work with them. And they often then will work with someone from another country and then lose a lot of that control, which is why I push a lot more now for producers. We've invested a lot in East Africa with producers, but now there's sort of secondary systems that I think are also the missing ingredients, which is entertainment lawyers. We have one in East Africa, and then we have a lot of countries with really different legal systems. So I know, like, I'm constantly in Ethiopia trying to encourage someone to work with my lawyer in Canada and, like, build up that business, because it's a gap. And also production accounting. This is a gap. And if you're co-producing with other countries where there's really often rigorous reporting and you're not used to keeping your books in that sort of way, that can quickly become a huge issue in a co-production. And then sometimes things as simple as, like, catering. If you're bringing in a huge crew and the people who do catering are used to doing, like, engagement parties and weddings and what a film crew needs that may be shooting overnights or early morning, it's not the same. So I think it's, when we're thinking about what is considered an emerging market, looking at all of the pieces that go into making a shoot really run smoothly.
That's brilliant insight. Thank you so much. So, Bavi, just before you put your mic down, I think, we're going to start to wrap up here and continue the conversation with everyone. But just to sort of round up on stage, can you talk about, like, when you come here next year, and I see you here next year, what you hope to be coming with? How will the picture look next year?
Well, I think we should all say, God be with all the filmmakers that we gonna fund, because you have to work very well and very quickly, because I want those films next year here. So that's what we're gonna do.
I think that's a brilliant note to end on. So just like thank our panelists very, very much. Thank you for coming. Like I say, the conversation is going to continue, but down there. So any questions that you might have, now is your chance. And I look forward to seeing you all back here next year for more exciting news. Thank you all. Thank you.